Alright guys, welcome to the channel, and in today's video we are going to be discussing about the various movesets, the various tips and tricks you can use, and in general how to parkour in the older Assassin's Creed games. Now before I go any further with this video, I would just like to say if you like this channel, then like this video, then press the like button, and also a subscription to the channel would be great. And I am really going fast because there is not much time. I want to make this a short enough video, and the last recording that I made went for like 40 minutes. So I'm going to be fast with this one. Don't worry though, I'll make sure you understand all of it. So now the primary aim for this video was to make sure that any newer player that is jumping into the game, and there are quite a few of them, they understand what the movement system is truly like. Like, the biggest complaint that I've seen from a lot of the newer fans of the game is that the controls are not responsive, or the controls are clunky and the character doesn't do what I want them to do, or the character is doing something else from what I intended the character to do. And actually, the problem is not the player. Like, I've seen, and even I've said in certain occasions that, the players just need to get better. And while, yes, the players do need to get better, the problem is not the players. The problem is not even the system. The problem is the lack of instructions, honestly. Because the system itself is extremely precise. And so, even if you don't intend to do something, you are actually doing something. You are telling the game to do that. Like, even if it's not your intention, the movements needs to be absolutely precise. The button presses need to be absolutely precise. So that is something that I'm trying to address with this video. But if you are an older fan of the Assassin's Creed games, don't feel like you can't watch this video. Maybe you have forgotten something about those older games. Maybe you just aren't in practice. So just keep watching. Anyway, now that we have discussed why I'm making this video, I want to clarify a few points. In Assassin's Creed game, in these movement systems, 70% of these movement systems is just visual cues. And that is something you have to pick up on. And that is something actually that's not that difficult to pick up on. And something that I will be discussing when I go through the various phases of parkour. And once you start understanding the world, like really understanding the world, you will see that parkour comes a lot naturally to you. Other than that though, one of the biggest mistakes that people make, and honestly this is a problem with people, this is not a problem with the game, is they don't press the buttons that are actually supposed to be pressed. Now Leo K has already made a video like this, and this is sort of inspired by that video. And the primary thing that I can take from his video and tell you here as well is that think of it as a racing game, or think of it as driving a car. Like, yes, you can go full speed. Like, if your car can go 140 kilometers per hour, yes, go at 140 kilometers per hour. But that doesn't mean you are taking the fastest route. If you look at the races, so look at the F1 race. Do they always press the accelerator? They are not just pressing full accelerator right away, right? They go into corners, they slow down, they brake. They do a lot of things. So slowing down is just as important as going fast. And that is something that I aim to, make people understand with this video. So now, to understand the system, first you need to understand the controls. And the controls are as follows. Now, the older Assassin's Creed games, up until Revelations, used a puppeteering system. Now, the puppeteering system simply means that all the actions pertaining to a single body part has been mapped to a single button. So now your offhand is one button, your leg is one button, your normal hand is one button, and your head is another button. There is sadly no buttons for the, Anyway, moving on from that. That was awkward. But one of the first things that you will do in these games if you want to start moving is, of course, press on the analog stick. Because in every video game ever, that's how you move. And if you are on a keyboard and mouse, it's WASD. Now, of course, you can remap to your heart's content. So to walk forward, you need to press the analog stick forward, and you can change directions using the analog stick. Now, this is extremely important when you are using the movement system. Like, yes, you can say, I can use the camera to point where I want to go. Yes, that works. But the more you want to get advanced with the system, the more you need to understand the system, you need to start using the movement keys to control your character's direction. Like, sometimes, even if your camera is pointing forwards, you need your character to go left. there are times where you will find that useful, and I'll talk about those times in this video. So, moving on from that, the most important button that you will find in the Assassin's Creed games is the high profile button. Now, since I want to keep this video short, I will not explain the entire scope of the high profile button. Just know this, that any action in the game that you are taking that will sort of grab the attention of people, for example, you start running or you start initiating parkour, all of that will require you to press the high profile button. So the buttons are as follows: the analog stick for movement, the right trigger for high profile, the A button for legs, and the B button for offhand. And this is a standard Xbox system, and it's fairly simple to just convert it to PlayStation. So don't worry about that. Just remember the names of these buttons. I will not be mentioning right trigger or anything like that. I'll just say high profile, or I'll just say legs. So keep that in mind when you move forward in the video. If you are confused at any point, or if you have forgotten at any point, you can come back to this part of the video, watch it again, and go back. Don't worry about it. Anyway, moving from that, now that you know the controls, now we need to talk about the various phases of movement. So the 4 stages of movement, or the 4 phases of movement, are as follows. Now there is walk, there is fast walk, there is a running animation, and then there is the sprinting. Now let's talk about walk. In walk, it's fairly simple. You press the analog stick in a particular direction, your character starts walking. That's it. Now for fast walk, you need to press the leg button. And for fast walk, you need to press the leg button from Assassin's Creed 2 onwards, because in Assassin's Creed 1, that button does something else, and I will discuss that near the end of the video once I am done covering all the regular parkour stuff. There are some elements here and there in these games that are different, and all of the differences will be covered later in the video. So yeah, to fast walk, you need to press the leg button. Now from fast walk, we now move into high profile actions. So the first high profile action is obviously just pressing the movement button, so the analog stick and the high profile button. So when you do that, you initiate running. Now in this running phase, your character will move fast, but your character will not stumble. Your character, even if he crashes into an NPC, will not do anything, and your character will not initiate parkour. So even if you go near some barrels or near any climbable object, your character will not climb as long as you're in high profile but not pressing the leg button. So now let's discuss the leg button. So the 4th phase of movement is sprinting. Now in sprinting, it's essentially running plus you pressing the leg button. So press the movement. So you start moving with an analog stick, you press the high profile, then you press the leg, and that is when you start sprinting. And now when you are sprinting, your character is the fastest that they can get. As I've discussed before, just because you're going fast doesn't mean it's the fastest way. So you need to know when to slow down. So if you are near some NPCs, if you keep sprinting while you're near NPCs and you crash into an NPC, you will stumble. Stumble twice and you will fall to the ground. If you are near an object that you can climb and you are sprinting, your character will start climbing. So if you don't want your character to climb, when you are near such objects, let go of the leg button. Because the moment you let go of the leg button, you are back to high profile, you're back to running, and you're still moving fast, but just slow enough that you don't start climbing, or even when you run into people, you just don't fall down. So this is a very important thing that you need to understand about this movement system, that when the opportunity arises, let go of the leg button. Absolutely let go of the leg button at every possible occasion, because that is only for you to use when you see a wide open stretch somewhere and you need to run. That's the only place you should realistically be using sprint. Now that we know how to move, now we need to learn how to climb. Now, you might remember I talked about various visual cues, and that's what I will be discussing here. Now, to start climbing, the buttons are fairly simple. Like I just said, it's essentially just sprinting, because sprinting involves you being in high profile and pressing the leg button. Now, being in high profile and pressing the leg button also initiates a jump. So that is essentially how you initiate parkour. So if you are in high profile, if you're sprinting and you are near a climbable surface, your character will start climbing. Now in these games, just like real life, if you want to go somewhere high, you shouldn't take the smallest route. The smallest route obviously would be to go straight up, but it's not essentially the fastest or the most efficient way to get up. Usually there is a way down the side of the building, and you absolutely should initiate from the side of the building, because horizontal movement in these games is faster than vertical movement, just like real life. So use those to go up. And the places now we'll talk about the various visual cues that you should look around in the environment if you want to initiate parkour. Some of them being barrels. Barrels are some of the short stacked barrels. You will usually find them right beside a wall somewhere, and if you see barrels, they are usually placed there so that you can initiate climbing somewhere. So the moment you see barrels, that's your opportunity. Other than that though, there are various other cues. There are some stacked surfaces. Like, the reason why I'm saying stacked surfaces is sometimes they are boxes, sometimes they are just some structures, but they are always in the shape of some stacked layers. So like you will see 1, 2 and 3 levels in that. That is where you can initiate parkour. Now, one of the last structures that you can use to climb is sort of boring, but hey, if you want safe, you can't go much safer than that, and that is the ladders. Now you will see a lot of ladders around the map, and if you see a ladder, that's a sure short way of climbing to the top, and I would say usually ladders are the fastest way of getting to the top. Now that you're up, you need to stay up, and so this section is dedicated to conserving your momentum. Now, to conserve this momentum, and when I say momentum, I mean horizontal momentum, not vertical one. So to conserve horizontal momentum, the first thing that you need to consider is what the hell is horizontal momentum. If you're not someone who has studied physics, you might not understand it, even though it's fairly basic. It just means that the speed that you have while moving forward should remain pretty much the same. Like, you will try to maintain that speed throughout your run. Like, if you stumble or if you stop dead, obviously the speeding is going down, and that means you couldn't conserve your momentum. That's what I mean here. And now, to do that, there are various tools available to you. One of the primary tools that you need to conserve your momentum, or to, even to climb in general, is the ejects. Now, ejects can be divided into 2 categories. These are side ejects and back ejects. Now, back eject is just sort of a special condition of a side eject. It's essentially you ejecting to a side, and that side is backwards. Now, there are 2 ways you can do a back eject. Now, you can use your analog stick and you can give the direction backwards to get into a back eject, but it is not something that I would recommend. Now, while the camera is your best friend in parkour, it is also your worst enemy. Because in Assassin's Creed games, especially in a tomb or some places like that, sometimes the game will take control of your camera. Now, the game does that to make it simpler for you, but it sort of has a counter effect, because when you get into that mindset of always controlling the camera and directing where you want your character to go, sometimes it just sort of throws you off. And in that sense, when you are back ejecting, the best way to do it is release the analog stick, use the high profile and press legs. Do not give a directional input when you want to back eject, because by definition, when you press the high profile and press the leg button, as long as your leg is connected to the wall, it will always back eject. And for side ejecting, well, all you really need to do is give it a direction. So if you give it a direction towards the left while pressing those buttons, it will side eject to the left. So this is something that is extremely useful in these games. Now, another thing that is useful is upwards eject. Now, it is something that is not present in Assassin's Creed 1, and it is something that is slightly different in Assassin's Creed Revelations with the hook blade, but those are something I will be discussing, as I've said, later in the video. But right now, the way these ejects work is in Assassin's Creed 2, after a certain sequence, which I won't spoil, you will get the ability to sort of catch the ledge. So you will jump upwards and you have to grab that ledge. And in Brotherhood, you actually buy a glove from Leonardo, and that allows you to do the exact same thing. So now, how does it actually work? The way it works is that as long as your feet are connected to the wall, what you can do is you can press your analog stick up, put your analog stick upwards, press the high profile button and press the leg button. this will allow Ezio to jump upwards from that position that he's in. And when you jump upwards and you see a ledge, you then need to manually grab that ledge. That is where the offhand button comes in. So the way this sequence works is that you go up, you are in a ledge, your feet are connected to the wall, you jump up and you press the offhand button to grab that ledge, and that will allow you to sort of get up. And when you actually master this, this is actually a really easy and a fast way to just climb a steep wall. So now that the concept of ejects is done, the next biggest thing that you need to understand is how to use these ejects to conserve your momentum. Now, throughout all these ejects, I've told you, you can back eject, you can side eject. The one thing that you need to remember is that when you eject, you don't go in a straight line. So for example, if I'm ejecting sideways, I'm not just going in a straight line. I'm actually going upwards and then coming down. It's sort of a jumping arc. It follows an arc. And from the moment you initiate that jump, you're actually going upwards and then you sort of come down. So there's an arc there. And so when you are in that arc, usually if you are climbing and you are sort of grabbing onto a ledge and your feet are connected to the wall and you press a side eject, you will actually go up. So that actually helps you get a slightly bigger range when you are making a jump. So how do you use it? As you can see on your screen right now, I am running up and then I make this jump, I grab onto the ledge, but I am stopped dead. So now I need to climb up, then I jump again, then I'm again stopped dead. So now you can clearly see, this is annoying, right? Like I am going into a ledge and I need to keep pulling myself back up. And so when you get into situations like these, like when you play the game, you will slowly start realizing that what distance you can actually jump. So when you see that, and when you understand what distance you can jump, and you think, okay, I'm not able to make this jump, what you need to do is what I referred to in the beginning. Like the camera, yes, you can use the camera and point it forward, but what you need to do there is make sure a character is going sideways, like use the analog stick to make your character go sideways, climb up the wall just a little bit, and then use a side eject. Now, in these games, one of the most important things that you need to understand is that the direction that you're giving should correspond with the camera. Right now, your camera is pointing forward. You might remember that I told you, if you want to side eject, press left to go left. But in this case, where are you actually going? You want to go forward, because your character might be moving right, but your camera is pointing forward and you want to go forward with that camera. So always press your buttons in the context of the camera. That is the most important things in these older games. Always remember, if your camera is facing a particular way, that is the way. Why did I say that? That is the way forward. That is your front. So if my camera is pointing this way, that is the front. If I want to go front, I'll push my analog stick front. If I want to go left, I'll push my analog stick left. The most important thing that you need to understand is in these games, the camera is king and the camera determines your direction. So if your camera is pointing forward, your inputs need to match that direction. Once you understand that, it is fairly simple. Anyway, so now that you're conserving your momentum, there are a few other tools that you can use. Some of the most important tools are the swinging poles. So it's the swinging lamps. Now you will find in various tombs and even throughout the world, you will find these hanging lamps and you will find a ledge there. So when you are grabbing onto these lamps, you will always move 90 degrees. To the right, to the left, it depends upon which orientation that lamp is in. So now moving from that, we have the swinging poles. Now the swinging poles are something that is very underrated, and a lot of people don't really realize how useful it is. Like, of course, yes, one of the biggest uses is if you're falling down, it sort of helps you get that downward momentum moving forward again. So if you're grabbing a pole while jumping down, you will go forward instead of keep going down. So that helps a lot with these things. Also, one other thing is it increases your range of the jump. So if you grab onto the pole, you are jumping a little bit farther. So it helps with that. But one of the biggest thing, I haven't seen many people talk about this, it helps you correct your direction. So if you're jumping at an angle, if you're jumping towards that pole at a particular angle, it will always correct you to wherever that pole is facing. So it's a very useful tool and you should always use it. Now that you know how to maintain momentum in air, now you need to know how the hell you need to come down, because you can't just stay up for all time. I mean, you can, but it's still good to know how you should come down. Now to come down, there are various tools that you can use. Now, the most obvious of them, of course, is how do you go down? You just do the opposite of what you did while coming back up, right? Now, how do you actually come down? Now, to come down from these areas, the best way to do it is to have your movement and press the high profile. Do not press the jump button, because the jump button will make sure that you jump there, and you don't want to jump. Trust me, you don't want to jump. What you want to do is, when you are going down, like you will see a path down. Obviously, you are jumping when you need to get to a ledge somewhere. Like as you can see right now on the screen, I am jumping to get to the ledge. But when I get to a close enough distance to the ground, stop jumping and use your high profile. Because if you are close enough to the ground, if you hold high profile and hold a direction, your character will simply jump to the ground and sort of do a roll and continue. Another way, and this is the much less elegant way to do it, is just jump. If you're at the top of a building, just aim for the next building and jump. Kudo. And when you are jumping, when you are getting close to the ground, use the offhand button to grab a ledge. Now, in these games, it doesn't matter how far you are falling, as long as you can grab a ledge, you will not take any damage. Now that we are done with all of the basics of parkour, like we considered how to go up, how to stay up, and how to come down. Now let's talk about the specialities of different systems. Now, Assassin's Creed 1, in my opinion, it's a little bit unrefined in terms of its world design. Like sometimes there is just a little bit of a building sticking out that is not allowing me to properly, do a side eject forward. As I've mentioned, like maybe there's a ledge somewhere and I just can't do a side eject because the building is coming in the way. So those are some things that were definitely improved in the later games, but some of the best thing that Assassin's Creed 1 did, and to this day I cannot believe why they dropped it in Assassin's Creed 2. Yes, they included tackle, but they absolutely shouldn't have dropped it. It is the vault. The vaulting in Assassin's Creed 1 is hands down the best way to get down. If you want to get down from somewhere, use the vault to your advantage. Now, how do you trigger the vault? The best way to trigger a vault is when you are on a ledge, like if you are running forward and you want to trigger this vault on a particular ledge, press the high profile, the leg, and the offhand button. Press all these three buttons just before the ledge before it. So now in your video right now, you will be able to see, and I'll slow it down. This is the point where you grab onto these three buttons. And when you do that, you still jump off this particular ledge, but in the next ledge, Altair sort of overshoots the ledge, grabs it with his hand because you just press the offhand button, and now you can just drop down. To drop down, you need to press the offhand button once again. So now you drop down, and now you can see how this plays out. So now this also plays neatly into another thing that I wanted to discuss about Assassin's Creed 1, which is the movement. Now I told you back in the early stages of this video that Assassin's Creed 1 does things a little bit differently. Now in Assassin's Creed 1, there is no fast walk. There is a blend mechanic. So the way it works, so as you can see right now, I just killed a guard. They didn't see me kill the guard. And so now I'm using the blend to walk past these two guards with ease. And that is how you should use blend. So that is something, these are some things that are unique to Assassin's Creed 1. Now moving on to Revelations. Now Revelations is a whole different bag of kettle. And I am not going to sort of tell you all the controls, because honestly, this video is long enough. It's easy enough to figure out. The jump button is still the jump. The offhand button is sort of still offhand. There is a way to grab ledges. And all of that still sort of works. The tool button is different now. All of that is different. But the basic movement system still is the same. You still initiate parkour with the leg buttons, you still grab ledge with the offhand button, the same button that was offhand before, and you still have the same high profile button. So all of these are the same, but the one notable difference is the hook blade. Now the hook blade is made of two elements, the hook and the blade. You know I had to say that. I was going to say that. There is no way I was not saying that. Anyway, so the hook blade does this thing where, you know how I just told you, in the older Assassin's Creed, in the AC2 and AC Brotherhood, Ezio sort of jumps up and grabs the ledge. Now in Revelations, you don't need to grab. The hook blade does it for you. So it sort of automates that entire process and makes it a little bit faster. And other than that, this hook blade does one other thing. That other thing being, I told you about swinging lamps, right? So when you go into that lamp, you take a 90-degree turn. Now that still works in Revelations unless you press the offhand button. Once you do that, you sort of swing on the lamp and go straight forward. So this is a way you can sort of take a big jump forward. It might come in handy at some point. In fact, it is useful for some puzzles in Revelations. So you can use that to sort of go forward as well. So instead of just going 90 degrees, this is just another option that was added in Assassin's Creed Revelations. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play a small video here. And now I'm going to describe exactly what I did in that video. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I was thinking while I was making those moves, and how those moves flow, and how you can do these things to enhance your own runs. So let's do that now. So as you can see right now, I'm on the screen, I'm doing this run. So now I'll just pause it here. Now in this run, as you can see, I'm already on top. I'm not initiating parkour. What I'm doing here is maintaining my parkour range. So I'm maintaining my elevation, and then I'm going to go down. So that is what this particular video is about. So what I did here is, first I jumped onto a ledge. Now as I've said before, I can't go parallel to the building, because if I go parallel, how will I get onto this? So what I did was I jumped first. Then, as you might see, I will immediately jump again. Now I said this before in the video that you need to learn how to control your character's direction with just the analog stick. Like, look at where my camera is facing. My camera is facing towards this particular direction, forward. But my character is going to a particularly different direction, towards the left. That is because I aimed my character to the left. Now I have done this run a few times, like I did it like 2-3 times before I finally recorded this one. So since I did that, I know that there is a ledge there, and that's why I can just put the left and I can just jump in. Now if you are just learning the system, I would recommend that you use the camera to sort of first understand where things are. And after that, you can start, sort of working on how to control the character, how to change your direction without keep changing your camera. Because this way, this run is a lot smoother. I can do a lot more if my camera is pointing where I want to go rather than where my character is going. So let's move forward. Now we move ahead. These were very simple jumps. All I did was I held on high profile and I held on to the jump button. It will keep moving you forward. It will always move you forward. Now I come to this ledge. As you just saw, I came onto the ledge and then I went up the wall, but I did not change the direction of my camera. As you can see, my camera is still pointing forward, but my character is going left. So now in this scenario, what I want to do from this ledge, what I did from this ledge was I pressed left, I pressed the high profile, I also pressed the leg button. So what I did was I went up the wall. As you can see right now, the feet are connected to the wall. That means I can now back eject. That is exactly what I do. So I did a back eject. Now for this back eject, as I've said, you can use your analog stick. And in this case, what you would have done if you wanted to use an analog stick was pull the analog stick towards the right, because that is how you will actually go by. Your character is facing the wall. So for your character to back eject, you actually need to move right because your camera is facing forward. If your camera is in the direction of your character, you can pull your analog stick back. It's a little bit complicated, but you get used to it the more you play. This is why a lot of people have a problem with this game, a problem with the system in general, because the camera and the actual controls are not, so like the controls don't compensate for the camera. You need to compensate for the camera. You need to change your direction according to where your camera is facing. That is why when the game takes your control away, when the game takes the control of the camera away from you, sometimes you tend to mess up. That's not actually your fault. That is something that will come with practice. Anyway, let's move forward. So this is again simple. I'm just jumping. Now right now, as you can see, there is this ledge here. Now, as I've shown you earlier in the video, when you jump to these sort of ledges, your character sort of comes to a dead stop. I don't want that. I want my character to stay on his feet. So what do? I initiate a side eject. I go up the wall, and now which direction should I be pressing my analog stick? So this is a left side eject. Remember that the character is facing the wall. The character should go left. So what should I do in this scenario? My camera is sort of facing forward. It's not entirely forward, and my character is not entirely perpendicular to the camera. The direction of my character is not entirely perpendicular to the camera. It is sort of like this. My character is facing here, my camera is facing here. What do? You guessed right, I compensate for that. So what I did was I pressed the analog stick forward. So since I pressed it forward, my character jumps forward. You see how the camera sort of went sideways? That's what happens when your camera is not like perpendicular to your character in that stance. So what I did was when I went forward, there was a wall there, so the camera sort of moved a little bit and the camera sort of centered to my character. Now my character is facing exactly in the direction where my camera is facing. So from this point on, if I want to jump left, I will press left. If I want to jump right, I will press right. If I want to jump forward, I press forward. I jump forward, so I did that. So right now, as you can see, very basic climbing over here. I just pressed the high profile, I pressed the legs, I climbed up that. Now, this is where your button discipline comes in. Remember how I said that you need to know when to let go of that sprint button. So right now, as you saw, I was holding on to that sprint button. I just climbed up the entire wall. I was sprinting. But as you just saw, I stopped sprinting right before the ledge. Because if I don't, and if I miss that ledge by even a little bit, my character will jump off. And now you might say, oh, this is clunky. This is not. Because that's exactly what I'm telling my character to do. If I press this button on my controller, if I press the leg button, I'm telling it to jump. So since I removed my hands from this button, I'm now telling the character, just get onto the ledge. Do not jump. So now, as you can see, we slowed down. So when we slow down, you will see the character sort of has his hands inside. And when I sort of sprint back up, his hands move wide. So when you move fast on these sort of beams, you will see your character will move his hands outwards to maintain balance. The reason why I'm moving fast now is because I am going to jump, as you will see. See, now I initiate the jump and I'm jumping towards my left. This is the advantage of the swinging pole. Even though I was not completely in the same direction as this swinging pole, this still corrected my direction and now I'm landing perfectly on this ledge. It is a very basic mechanic that you can use and it's a very useful tool for you. So now in this scenario, I already have a path charted for me because I know where I'm going. I have done this like 2-3 times. So what I do here is I quickly change my direction without changing my camera. So what I did here, I pressed back on my analog stick and I jumped. I jumped in high profile. So what my character did is immediately jump. So when my character is jumping, as you can see, falls on the ledge, and what I do immediately is I climb to the wall on my right because I actually want to go left. But the jump in this scenario, as you will see in a few seconds, the jump is a little bit larger. So I need that vertical momentum. So what I did was I increased my verticality, I increased my distance, and now I am back ejecting from this point on. So I went sideways, I went up, and now I'm going to back eject. So that will give me a little bit more range to do what I want to do. So now I back eject, and as you can see right now, I'm falling onto a pole. So I did that entire arc. That arc ends at the pole. And when I get to the pole, it immediately switches my direction. It immediately corrects my direction. As you can see, the pole was somewhere over here. and my character was moving like this. So when my character went to the pole, it changed direction, went online with the pole, and went down to the ground gracefully. So this is a system that you can use to sort of really elevate your gameplay from just, randomly going around to sort of really understanding how the system works and sort of really understanding how you can use these controls to your advantage. Now, this video is very long and I'll try to cut it out as much as I can, and hopefully I'm able to, because I don't want to upload like an hour-long video. But it was necessary to make you understand how I am doing these things, or how everyone does these things. So now that you have understood, if you have any doubts, once again, mention those down in the comments below. And like this video if you like it. If you found this helpful, do let me know. And if you want to add something, if you know something more, something that I couldn't discuss in this video, add those in the comments as well. If people are reading these things, it will help them out. So add those things down in the comments below. And thank you guys for watching, and do subscribe to my channel, and I'll leave you guys in peace.